So hey guys, just jumping online here. I got my buddy Ricky with me, and we're going to be continuing the episodes of just kind of talking through racism and things like that. So yeah, Ricky, how's it going today? You doing all right?
Yeah, today's been okay. It's a Friday.
All right, all right. So yeah, just to kick things off, I know we're kind of limited on time and everything, but how are you feeling about just everything going on right now? Just I know there's a lot going on, but how are you feeling right now, just with everything going on?
It's been a lot to deal with. I've actually had to like take a couple of days off work and things like that because it was just a lot to wrap my mind around. And I think it affects me a little bit more because I am a mom of all boys, specifically African American males. And I have four of them. So that's four more reasons for me to worry than anybody else, in my opinion. So it's not a very comfortable climate nor mental space right now at all.
Yeah, yeah. No, I definitely agree. And the thing is too, like my brother and I growing up as well, I was mentioning to a couple of people that we never had these types of situations back in Detroit. And you would think Detroit would be sort of like, a worst case scenario for a black male. But,
Right.
obviously there were some rough patches and rough spots between, with me and my brother and, our environment, but never to the point of, we ever felt threatened or anything like that from our own race or other races. So, the climate right now is definitely different and a lot more, explosive, so to speak. So, how are you dealing with the new situations? Are you taking different like steps, different precautions, talking to them, things like that?
Um, I would say that because they're different age groups. So, um, I would say that our dinner table conversations are a little bit different because we've had to incorporate more serious conversations as opposed to like your typical "What did you do today?" or "How was it playing with this person?" or "What did you watch?" and things like that. It's kind of hard as a parent to know how to have the conversations with your children without creating like this atmosphere of fear for them to where they're growing up unsure and uncomfortable. So, my little brother, I have five brothers and I'm the only girl. So I've grown up around black men all my life. And my younger brother is actually trying to put together like a series where he has all of his nieces and nephews on a call. He's a little bit more political. He has a very big stance on social injustices. And so he's kind of taken that burden, so to speak, to try to talk to the kids for us because it's just really hard to know what you're supposed to say without scaring them half to death. So, like the
Sure.
conversation that I have with my 19-year-old and my 15-year-old is not really the same conversation I can have with my 10-year-old. And it's definitely not the conversation I can have with my 5-year-old.
Mm,
So, it's just very hard knowing how to juggle the conversations. And I can't really talk to them all at one time because the topic is so heavy that it's not age specific.
sure. Sure.
Yeah, so like I'm trying to show them different things and tell them in a way where they're not, for the 5-year-old, I don't want him to grow up thinking that, grow up too scared or thinking that, certain races aren't his friend. I don't want the 10-year-old, he's a huge empath, so I don't want him crying every day about it. So it's just it's a very uncomfortable time for me as a parent to try to explain these things to them.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Totally understand. And like I said, I'm kind of in my own head trying to figure out ways that I'm going to have to tell Jordan the same things when she grows up, and
Hmm.
also just with some of my nephews and cousins and things like that. Because to your point, I mean, there's my family's sort of half and half. We have a lot of guys, a lot of girls, but I think for everybody, it's a new dynamic of thinking the way we have to think about it right now, unfortunately. Some of my, or I would say my white and Latino friends, and even my Chinese friends have been pretty supportive throughout this process.
Hmm.
Have your friends and other colleagues been pretty, or friends been pretty, I guess, supportive through everything going on and everything?
Yeah, they have, and I love to say this is probably going to sound wrong, but I pride myself in the fact that I always say I've chosen the right non people of color friends
Hmm.
because all the ones like all the people that I know who are not African American, they are very supportive. They use their voice for the right reasons. Like I have some Caucasian female friends that are in their states, going to the protest or starting initiatives at their job. Even like I have a coworker who's I'm really close with her, but she's a baby boomer, and like she's trying to create a whole initiative at the job on the behalf of the African Americans in my, in my department. So I would say that my Caucasian friends have been very vocal and very supportive. I do have sometimes like you'll get the text like, "Are you okay? Is there anything I can do?" And the truth is, no. I'm not okay, and no, there's not much you can do except take the opportunity to teach somebody else.
Sure.
There's a lot of we've had plenty of conversations, especially lately at work, like big forums center wide. Um, and I work for a government agency, but we've had really big conversations. And there's been a lot of people who, they want to learn more and they want to do more and they want to figure out how they can help. And I remember one of our meetings, there was a young Black woman that works in my department, and she was just like, "Black people didn't just come out." Like she was like, "We've been here. Like this has been an issue." So for the most part, they've all been, really supportive. I'm more so pleased with them trying to use their voice or try to make an impact of change than to get the text like asking me if I'm okay, because I'm not, and there's nothing that anybody could do with it right now.
Yeah, yeah. No, I totally understand. I mean, up until this point, like I said, definitely understood racism was it existed, but
Hmm.
even myself, I've had to take like a couple of days, off work as well, and just kind of sit back and just kind of ponder, like, what is going on out here? Like, just trying to figure everything out.
Exactly.
Um,
And then it's been like hard to take off because like I was in a position where I'm like, if I tell my boss why I really need these days off, are they going to understand?
yeah, yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, if I say I need a mental health day because George Floyd was just murdered, like,
Hmm.
how are they going to look? So it's just a really weird situation because honestly, I need more than those 2 days off that I took, but
Sure.
it's just hard to gauge, what to do right now.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I definitely think, I can definitely understand what you're going through because I've kind of gone through the same thing. And it's tough, like a lot of things that are happening right now are frankly unheard of. I don't, I have to do my own analysis one of these days, but I don't understand why it's so hard to change a mindset, so to speak. I mean, it seems like once this mindset exists for the last 400 years, it's like embedded in people's psyche,
Yeah.
and I just don't understand how it's so hard to not get people to see that hatred and violence is not a good thing. I mean, even the people I dislike, I think about murdering them. It's just
Right,
not
right,
in my head. I'm like, guys, it's not that serious.
right.
So so yeah,
I mean, it's and the crazy thing about it is, and I've seen like this quote, this meme all over the place. It's not like these things are not new. It's just that now they're being recorded
sure.
or they're being published. So these things have been happening for as long as we probably can remember. Like these are probably the same things that our grandparents were going through and things like that. But grandma didn't have a camera or a cell phone or anything like that. So I
Hmm.
think now it's just that it's being exposed more, but it's being exposed at a rate that's so overwhelming for the Black community because it's like every time we turn around, there's a hashtag or a death or a news article. And like I've even had to take a break from social media because I'm just like I have my personal page and then I have my dog page. My dog timeline is a whole lot more pleasing right now
Hmm.
than my personal page. Like I only use my dog page because I'd rather look at dogs all day. I don't want to read articles. And it's not even about, I'm not trying to be ignorant to the situation, but I just can't take all of that right now because again,
Sure.
every day I'm, after I look at those things, it makes me think too hard about my children. Like I've literally every single time I've been pregnant and found out it was a boy, I've been scared out my mind.
Sure.
Only because I'm like, no matter what I do or how I raise them, and I'm blessed to have really good children, but it's like that's not enough anymore. And I don't know that it's ever been enough. I mean, my brothers have all, none of them have ever been through the situations that we're going through now. But how do we not know that the climate is not hotter now?
Yeah.
I was too young back then. I don't know what my brothers actually went through, but it's just scary to be a parent, and it's scary to see the news, and it's scary like people, like a lot of my white friends send me articles and stuff, and they respect though when I say, "Hey, I can't do this today." Like, "Thanks for telling me, but I can't read this today," or, "I don't want to hear about this today." I think recently I was informed about the 8-year-old girl who was shot by one of the alternative groups. And I'm just like, I think it was a girl, she was shot. I don't know if it was by like that group that's been organized over by Stone Mountain, but it was
Yeah.
an 8-year-old girl, and like her mom drove up to like a man-made barricade and they shot into the car. I'm like,
Yeah,
why?
I heard about that. Yeah,
Yeah, and I'm just like, but unfortunately it's happening, but I just I don't wanna read about that right now,
yeah. No,
you know?
absolutely. No, totally understand. And it's kind of interesting too. Like I'm talking to my mom, she's in her 70s, I'm in my 40s, and she's had various racial experiences. My dad, he had a bunch of racist experiences. Off the top of my head, just a few days ago, not even really thinking about racism, but over the past few years, I just kind of thought about the numbers, and I'm like, wow, I'm up to like 10 or 11 myself. Just, some of them, pretty aggressive, some of them not so aggressive, but I'm like, the
Yeah.
fact that I'm in double digits is disturbing in itself. Likewise, have you had, and you don't have to go into the stories because I know that they can be kind of, you know, horrific in certain aspects, but by the numbers, would you say you've had several racist experiences, or how many have you had?
Um, Me personally, I've only had in the course of my lifetime. I mean, the majority of them that I've had have been in corporate America,
Okay.
where I've actually had white managers and superiors tell me that they had an issue with me because I was confident in my job and I was smart. And I've never had a boss complain about
Okay.
that before. I was like, so I'm not supposed to do my job right? Like, what does this mean?
Yeah.
So I've had I mean, it was ridiculous. I've had racism in the workplace. And even in the job that I'm in now, where we're trying to start this initiative, I had to let one of my coworkers know, like, I don't think I've had these experiences that other people may have. And I was like, it's pretty cool working here. And she said to me, Ricky, how do you know you're not the cool one? And I was just like, oh, okay.
Okay. All right.
I was like, well, good way to put it. So I would say like the majority of my negative experiences in terms of racism would have been in the workplace because unfortunately, um, in some environments, it's just not. It's frowned upon for you to be a strong Black woman who's educated and who knows what she's doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I've had a similar, kind of experiences with that as well. And the tough part is that, you can't really say, hey, I left my old job because of somebody called me the N-word. It's like they probably
Right.
don't want to hear that. But,
Right.
it's yeah, there is a dynamic out there. Like you said, it's more like I felt like I had the same experience where I'm looked down upon because I gave a good answer in a meeting or something like that, and people are like, oh, that's a great idea,
Right.
Corey. And then other people are looking at me like, or how dare you speak up or something. It's like, okay, well,
Right.
am I supposed to just sit here and be stupid? Like, I don't understand.
Yes, you are, Corey. You are. That's exactly what you're
Exactly.
supposed to do.
Yeah.
I mean,
Uh-huh.
that's what it is though. Like that's, there it comes to that point. I mean, I've never been called the N-word or anything like that. But I do have some coworkers over the years who are darker than me who have had more harsh experiences than I have.
Mhm.
Like I have had people tell me that I talk white. And I was like, what does that mean? It's a color,
Yeah.
not a
Exactly.
linguistic. Like what does
Yeah.
that mean? So I have had like microaggression, definitely, but no real like heart-wrenching racist situations except for, like I said, with leadership being threatened by my abilities.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had that too. The wonderful conversation of, hey, you're from Detroit. Why do you talk white? I'm like, what does that mean? Like,
Right. It's like, what is that?
I'm
I'm
speaking
confused.
English. Like, what are you talking about?
Exactly. Like, no, this is how you're supposed to do it. I don't
I could
understand.
speak English the old school way, how they do in Britain, but no, I'm speaking modern, everyday American English,
Right.
not British
How dare you?
national English. Yeah, exactly, exactly. No, and that's totally funny too because like again, West Side Detroit, grew up off of 8 Mile. Obviously, there are some rough spots in Detroit. Don't get me wrong. Growing up, I've had fights and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, my friends are pilots and radio hosts and engineers and businessmen and businesswomen. None of us grew up, hey, talking like, you know what I'm saying? Like that. Like, all right, we did that when we were 16, not when
Right.
we're 40. Okay.
Right.
So, but I think there's that dynamic a lot. A lot of people think you're supposed to talk a certain way and act a certain way. And it's just like, that's not reality. Reality
Hmm.
looks a lot different. What has your transition been like coming from the north down to the south? Have you seen like a transition or anything different or the same or?
Um, Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, up north, I guess I can compare how I grew up to like where you grew up, like in Detroit. So I grew up in like South Side Jamaica, Queens, which is like a rougher area, but we didn't have like the rougher life. It was just the rougher borough. Um, it was definitely more aggressive up there. And I actually moved down here because it was very violent up there. But the difference with up there was, sad to say, like I grew up with those, like yes, there were gangbangers and drug dealers and things like that, but I knew them. We went to the same elementary school, we went to the same high school. So yeah, you were
Right.
robbing people and killing people, but it wasn't me, you know?
Right.
Like you
Yeah.
wasn't looking for me. So and then moving down here, I think the biggest change was seeing Confederate flags all the place, like all over the place. So it's like the people were nicer and they had like that Southern hospitality, but there were no Confederate flags, flying proudly where I'm from.
Yeah.
Especially like not in New York, period. I don't know if maybe upstate New York they have that, but not the New York I grew up in. So, and
Sure.
I've been to every borough and I've never seen like people comfortable with being like that. Like,
Yeah.
even police at that time, they weren't comfortable, showing racist behavior. Now they are, which is weird because it's like they're being filmed more now.
Sure.
But that was the biggest difference because, like, literally, I came down here, and to me, the Confederate flag was like it was just a blatant sound or sign of hatred. So to see that on people's, lawns and flying from their cars, and that really like it made me uncomfortable because I moved into a neighborhood where every other house had it, and I was just like, yeah, I'm unsure about this. So
Sure.
that was the biggest like cultural transition for me. Was that it was so accepted here, whereas in New York, if those were your views, you were keeping it quiet because you didn't want issues with people who didn't think that way.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that, from what I can tell, and because I know a guy that went to my old church, and he had a Confederate symbol on his truck, but he was the nicest guy, and we were really cool. So I think to me, it seemed like, and we never talked about Confederacy, but we were always really just cool and cordial with each other. We hung out, he hung out at my house for a little bit. But the thing that I'm kind of trying to figure out, and I think it's more of a conditioning, is that symbol is more of a conditioning, I think, towards for people to like get embedded in their psyche or whatever. And I think
Yeah.
over time, a lot of people probably don't realize the negative impacts of it or the negativity surrounding it. So I'm in no way defending the Confederate flag, but I noticed that some people that wave that flag, I don't even think they realize the deep rooted hatred and treasonous aspects of that flag that come into play. Um, for me in particular, like to your point, I've seen that a lot, and I just kind of scratch my head, like it's against the United States flag, you're comfortable with it, and that's fine.
Mhm.
But are you realizing you're being conditioned to a certain mindset? And I don't think they
Right.
realize that. So
And I think you're right because like there's even like I do I am friends with a white woman who I know for a fact is not racist, but she was, and I say was because I think she's learned a little bit about him now. She was an avid 45 supporter. And when it
yeah,
comes to my friendships and my personal relationships, there are two things that I don't let interfere or that I don't use as a deal breaker: religion and politics. I do not bring into my friendships because I'm never going to tell you who to vote for, and I'm not going to fight for your views, and I'm never going to tell you who to worship. That's your
sure,
business. But as long as, we respect those boundaries and you don't say anything disrespectful about my beliefs and I won't say anything disrespectful about yours. And, when she first was open about voting for him, people would ask me, like, are you cool with her voting for him? I was like, she can vote for whoever she wants as long as she, the values or the way that she treats me and my family, it needs to stand for something outside of what he's doing.
hmm
And I saw a post and I thought of her because it said something about just because you voted for that person, it doesn't mean that you're racist, but it does mean that you're okay with racist comments. And I kind of had to like look at it and I was just like, oh, that's a little subjective. But like the same way, like there are people who don't see the bigger picture, just like you said with the Confederate flag. Some people don't see the bigger picture. Like I know a lot of people who, go to Stone Mountain and they exercise and they climb the mountain. I've been here for 10 years, I've never gone. And
yeah,
when people ask me why, and I'm like, I don't agree with the history there. And
yeah,
they're like, well, what's your history? And I'm like, well, from what I was taught, was that African Americans will lynch there. So no, I don't want to climb your stinking mountain. I'll go play volleyball in my backyard.
Right.
And that's not to shun or shade anyone who goes there, but I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of people don't know the history behind these things.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's the thing that we've touched on this channel before as well, education and just overall knowledge. The fact that when you start getting the education and the history and the research behind these certain symbols and certain areas, that's when I think the lights start to go off. Because similar to what I talked about with some other colleagues I had on, is that the N word and with the A on the end, I used to use that all the time as a teenager. But once I started researching the history of the word, how it relates to slavery, how it relates to Confederacy and everything else, I just, I popped up one day. It's probably like 20 years ago. I'm like, whoa, all right, no, we're not using that word ever again. So, and literally, I've never said the word in like 20 years. So it's like, no, we're good now. So,
and that's also a thing that we've been conditioned to accept, right? Because we were taught, or it made it seem okay to use the A versus the ER. If you use the ER, you're leaning towards something else. But if you use the A, it's okay. It's a sign of a term of endearment for your friends. So that's another thing that I think goes back to conditioning, because who made that rule? Like,
right.
Like who said that? Like, who created that determination of the two words?
Sure. No, absolutely. Yeah. You're right. It's like I said, it's conditioning and everything else. But like you said, education, I think, is the key. When you start to understand and research these things fully, I think that's what really brings it home for or at least a lot of the people that I'm associated with. They've done some research and they're like, whoa, okay, yeah, this is pretty deep. I'm like, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and if people are open to learning things, because I don't know everything either. Of course, nowadays there's always something to hear, always something to look at in a, with a side eye, especially when it comes to the media and how they portray things. But my biggest thing for, a lot of people want to know, how can we be your allies and how can we do this? Just take time to learn, like take time to realize that this is not new. This is something that we've been going through for years. No, we're not okay. There's a lot of people who say, yeah, I understand that, but no, we don't want to hear the but. Like, we just want you to understand, this is how we are. Like, there's a lot of people who I know are very vocal about the riots and the destruction of property. Now, I don't support those. And that's because I'm just a nonviolent person. I don't see how that helps the situation. But at the same time, I'm one of those people who believe that you cannot tell somebody how to react.
Yeah.
Like, you're not, you can't control somebody's reaction. So, like, if I pluck you on the forehead and you punch me in the face, I can't get mad at you for punching me in the face, but I plucked you in the forehead, even though it was just a pluck, I can't get mad at you for your reaction. So if I feel like with people acting out that way, they're just tired. Now, no, I'm not out there destroying property and vandalizing things, but am I mad at those who aren't? I can't be, because I can't tell them how to act. I can't tell them how to express themselves or how to be fed up. We're all fed up in our own ways.
Sure.
Like me being fed up could be, I'm taking a social media break and I don't want to talk to anybody for a week. I don't want to watch TV. That could be my way of trying to deal with things. But if people are acting out, I don't have to support it, but I'm not against it. I can't, that's just where we are. Like, this is the point that we've gotten to right now.
Yeah. Yeah, but you're absolutely right. I mean, looking at some of the aspects of like the riots and things like that, I totally agree. I'm like, guys, put your guns down, put the bats and everything else down, put everything down. Don't destroy anything. Don't match hate with hate. That's not how we're going to win.
Yeah, that's how I am.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to win this with love. We're going to win this with legislative changes, and we're going to win this by voting. We're not going to win it by destroying everything. And obviously,
that last part, we need to vote.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, we can't complain and not go out there. And there's a lot of people that feel like, oh, my vote's not going to count. Well, it's surely not going to count if you sit on your couch. Like, I'm not saying that I have total faith in the whole voting system. I'm just, maybe it's the New York in me. I don't believe anything. Okay, so I don't have total faith in that system. But it's like, I know that I feel better knowing that I made a conscious effort to change things. Like, it starts with that, and it goes, like, you need to start in the smaller areas first. So yeah, you don't like the way that things are being done, but it's not all about the White House. Like, there are plenty of steps to get to before change is there.
District,
like, there's so many different pieces to the puzzle. So I feel like voting is very important, and I know, like, because so many Black people feel like their voices aren't heard, they're discouraged from voting. And I'm like, listen, since George Floyd, and he's not the first, and unfortunately he won't be the last, but this was like the biggest movement in forever.
Sure.
And, unfortunately, it had to go the way that it did. But this was literally the first time, because I mean, we've had Ferguson, we've had
Trayvon Martin.
Like, I mean, the names go on, you know what I mean? And this was the first time that I've seen people everywhere. I mean, even not like international, like protesting. And it warmed my heart because I was like, wow, like to see like the Black Lives Matter painted everywhere, to see that the address to the White House was changed to Black Lives Matter Way, like stuff like that made me smile, because all I can think is hopefully this is the movement that changes stuff. I'm not going to curse, that changes stuff, because I'm hoping that by the time, so I already have my stepson who's 19. He's already out there. He's grown for the most part. He's in the world, whatever. But what I'm hoping is that by the time my 15-year-old, gets out of high school and branches out, that maybe things are different. And then by the time my 10-year-old gets out there, maybe things are even better. And then when Jordan and my youngest are out there, maybe things are, I'm hoping that this was the thing to change the narrative. I don't know if it was, but this was such a big movement. And I'm kind of leaning towards the fact that we're being heard finally.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. Painting Black Lives Matter on every street corner doesn't mean that it's a change. It means that you had paint and you had time and you painted it. But, but it's like, I'm hoping that this was big enough to change the narrative for all of us, because this is a conversation that I'm pretty sure your parents have had to have when you were younger, and your grandparents probably had with your parents, and the same with mine. But it's just so much more aggressive now, because you have the filming, and then you have the cops who don't want to be filmed, and then you have like it's a lot of liquid courage out there. Like, a lot of people are bold for the cameras. Like, I've seen people literally act out at riots just so that they can go viral.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like what's the word? Like instigated ignorance as well out there. So I don't know. This is different, but I'm hoping that this was big enough to change the narrative for our children as they get there.
Absolutely. No, totally agree. And like I said, it's definitely not going to happen overnight, but I like the progression. I love the steps that we're taking, and we can't spend another 50 years doing the same, runaround.
Yeah.
We absolutely cannot have that,
Yeah. So. And I think that we definitely, for our children's sake, we need a change in the narrative, because I'm hoping that, my 15-year-old doesn't have to go through this. But unfortunately, I can't control that, because once he leaves my house and he goes to school, or he goes to work, or he goes to Quick Trip, like, society now judges what happens to him when he leaves my house. And that's a scary behind thought.
Sure.
So hopefully, I've seen a lot of white people being very vocal now. I've seen different cultures and races. And like I said, even countries, like when I saw the Amish come out and protest, I was just like, whoa, like they don't even pay attention to this stuff. You know what I mean? So I'm hoping that this is strong enough to make a good enough dent in the narrative, so that our children don't have to worry about this or have this conversation with their children.
Absolutely.
Hey guys, hope you enjoyed the videos. Please feel free to like and subscribe at the bottom. And please leave your comments. We want to hear from you. We want to hear about ways of reconciliation. But we also want to hear about subject matter you want to talk about on the show. So give us a shout, like, subscribe, comment.